Thank you all, everybody. We're starting a couple minutes late for an IT issue. Thank you all for coming. It's the Carver Earth Removal Committee for January the 14th, 3 o'clock. We are in meeting room 1 at the town hall. If everybody can just make sure they silence their cell phone, please. Board members will be recognized first, and today we're going to have audience participation on certainly one of the topics. So we'll just make sure that you guys contain it to a couple of minutes if you could. If things get out of hand, I'll stop, as I have in the past, the conversation, and then we'll reset, if you will, and we'll go from there. Area 58, thank you very much for being here. You'll be recording, and is there anybody else recording today? Can you say your name, please?
My name is Carver.
Can you write that down so we can add it? Well, Ashley's getting it, perfect. Is there anybody else other than Catherine recording today? Cool. Thank you, Catherine. All right, so thank you guys for being here. You notice that we do have 2 board members that are absent today. Personal issues stopped them from being here. We can move on to the minutes. Ashley's been doing a great job getting them right out to us right quick. You guys see anything that you want to change or anything? Or can I get a motion to accept as written?
I reviewed and will make a motion to accept as written.
Okay, Roger. Roger first. Do I
I'll
have a
second. I'll second.
Thank you.
I wasn't present, so
Okay. Any
I can still
discussion?
vote on them for a quorum, I
Yep.
believe, yeah.
Yep. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Ashley, we are unanimous.
Can you vote on the
I'm sorry?
We were told,
Yep.
yeah.
We've gone through that one several times, so. And right now, we're a little bit pressed for a quorum, so there you go. I have talked to Judy about the next potential meeting date for Tuesday, February the 4th. This room, meeting room 1 at 3 o'clock. How does that fit your all schedule?
Fits me fine.
Johnny, you around?
Yeah, it's tight, but I'll be here.
Okay,
Unfortunately, I won't be available.
okay. I will be here, but in light of what's been happening, we'll make sure everybody else can be, so we can have a quorum to not waste anybody's time. So right now, we'll set the meeting date for February 4th, 3 o'clock, right here in meeting room 1. And if we should need to change it, I'll get a hold of Jen and we can go from there. Okay? Mike, thank you for pre-planning. I do appreciate it. All right. We have some invoices. You guys got them in your packet. The first one I'd like to go over with you guys is the one from GGS Consulting. The total value of that invoice is $2,030. Our portion is $770. And that's to go back through, like we did before, a records review of yardage and such. Can I get a motion to approve $770 for GGS Consulting, please?
I'll make that motion, Scott.
Thank you. Have a second?
Sure, second.
Thank you, Roger. And then, moving on, we have operations and maintenance.
I think we need to vote on that.
I'm sorry?
We need to vote on that?
We do.
Yeah, okay.
So they've done some cold patch repair and some basin rebuild and sidewalk repair. And they've done a little bit of hot mix repair around rebuilt catch basins to the tune of $2,320.25. Also in your packet, it shows the amount for the hot box, which we had already pre-approved. And this is just that it's been paid. So $23.20 and 25 cents to O&M. If you guys would like, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion, Scott.
John? Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We are unanimous. All right. All right, as I've said, I've said before in the past, we have a vacant seat. And every time somebody has a personal issue and can't come, it's very nerve-wracking to make sure we have a quorum to not waste anybody's time. So I am in fact asking for a volunteer. If anybody that wants to serve on the Carver Earth Removal Committee to put their name forward to the, where would that go, Jen? To the Select Board's office, probably?
I think so.
Yeah. They can appoint, so anybody out there that wants to be part of the Carver Earth Removal Committee, we'd love to have you.
Numerous people have submitted applications over the years. I know for a fact, I've seen them.
What I would suggest, I'm begging, is to resubmit, and we'll see what I don't see those. So that's kind of where it is for me right now. I've been asking for a long time, and I haven't seen a single application. So,
Well, I guess that's maybe because you just ignore everyone who's not in the cranberry industry in front of you.
well, thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, what did you do?
Okay. All right. So, I wanted to talk about Agent Forg. Is he sitting in the audience? Did I see him earlier? Did I see Kevin walk in? No?
think so.
Okay. Anyway, it was thought that the health agent, Kevin Forg, was going to be our agent for the Earth Removal Committee. He has since declined to be that person. And I can't say as I blame him, to be honest with you. He is fairly busy, and he's winding down his career anyhow. And I don't blame him for not wanting to sit up here and take any misery from some people in the audience. So, the fact of the matter is, I am looking for somebody else. So I'll be talking with the town administrator and seeing where we go from there. So right now, Kevin has told me that he is out, just so you guys know. Okay? There has been this past week a weather phenomena that has caused a little bit of concern and a fair bit of dust in a neighborhood. And it's been problematic. It's been problematic for the neighbors specifically. It has been problematic for the contractor and certainly for the landowner. Eric Weston did text me and say he was gonna be here for discussion purposes with us. The health agent was in fact informed of this by several people, rightfully so, by the way. The dust was bad. He's reached out to the contractor at SLT, and they have taken some steps to mitigate that dust. It was a cold, dry situation where it was windy. We did talk about some remediation on the piles and the dirt roads. And that was, in fact, it was too cold to do anything with at that point. But I will trust that that is getting squared away from here on out.
What site is that?
That was at the off Plymouth Street site. There were,
Parking lot,
I don't know that off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Eric Westland's,
That's correct. So,
one of many sites that I know the environmental police were called numerous times.
so what I can talk about specifically is what I know about, which is the 4 complaints to the health agent.
Don't you have an obligation to investigate the
We-
rest of the violations?
That was the only one I had heard about it. That was the only information I had. So that's the one we're dealing with. So that is in fact a problem. So Eric and his contractor SLT will be taking care of that in the near future, if it hasn't already been done. All right. There is several permits that you guys are aware of that have come to their 5-year completion deadline. We've asked several times repeatedly when we've been out on site walks with the applicant and the landowner to start closing them out. We've seen nothing. We haven't seen an application for a pit closure on some of these, to the best of my knowledge. Jen, you haven't seen anything.
Could you
So
tell the public what you're talking about, what permits are you talking about?
there are several permits right now that are at the end of their 5-year window. I can't tell you which ones they are because I'm not certain of it.
Oh, but you're gonna talk about it,
So the discussion that the board is having is to ask Jen, which I'm going to get to in a moment, make sure it's okay with the board to ask Jen to send a letter to these permit holders that they are at the end of their 5-year time span.
your minutes show that you have a list of permits.
I don't have them in front of me today. I don't have them in front of me, and for that I apologize, I just don't have them.
And of course, one of the ones coming up for the end of the 5 years is 80 Makepeace, and Mr. Mason's sitting here as an employee of Makepeace, and you're talking about one of Makepeace's many permits, undoubtedly.
Again, I don't have a sheet in front of me. The couple that I was thinking of are not that one, so that's why I'm including
What are the couple that you're thinking of?
the Van Johnson permits and the Edgewood Boggs permits. I am not certain that those are actually up, is why I'm not saying it.
They're not actually up because they've been going on for what, 10, 15 years maybe?
So we're gonna finish. So Jen, if you could draft a letter, send it out to me and I'll send it out to the board for circulation that we can get that out to the, to the applicants and the permit holders that we can start that pit closure for them. See if there's been any activity and such like that.
Can you let the public know after those letters go out, who you wrote them to, so we know?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. DeTomaso, thank you very much for your patience, and I profusely apologize for neglecting you in the original draft of the agenda. I hope you didn't feel too slighted, but
I'm here, so that's all that counts.
there you go.
I don't know what the process is for the board to vote, if it's done in public or in private, but
Everything is done in public.
in public. I don't know how I can facilitate. I encourage the board to vote to implement the provision in the bylaw that requires, I believe, requires the permit holder to provide monitoring for their site. And I would like to see it implemented to validate truck counts, and forgive me, and the hours of operation. The truck count and the hours of operation have been issues that have gotten a lot of emotion in the community, and if you have a system in place that cannot be argued about, it's a fact, that seems like it would serve a good purpose for the town. And the bylaw does give the ERC the authority to require the permit holder to do that. I know when I've mentioned it in the past, I said the town should pick it. Bylaw doesn't say pick the service that would be used. The bylaw doesn't say that. So I can understand the hesitancy to do it that way, as I've said it. I have, Pontiff, I believe, has you've mentioned that Pontiff has a site that does have a monitoring that you
They have-
liked?
They have an on-site.
They do have
scales.
on-site cameras there for their own use. We're working through the legality of asking them for that now.
Okay, so it's in the works.
It is in the works. We have,
Thank you.
since you asked for that the first time, we've not issued a new permit to require it under an
Okay.
order of conditions.
Okay, thank you. I know that. I also, the last time I spoke, asked for the ERC to consider a truck limit of 1,200 trucks per day, which would be the 12 permits that I believe currently are still open at the 50 trucks per day and the 50 return empty trucks, 100 trucks per day per permit, 12 permits.
So just so you know, when we count a truck trip, it's in and out. So
So it's 100 per
So
permit per day.
it's 50 loads. That's what our permits right now have been set at, is 50. So when they come in empty, that's not counted as one. It's counted as one when they leave.
I've never heard it said that way.
Yeah, so we've got 50 loads per day on all of our permit order of conditions. That's the maximum right now that we have.
Okay, then I amend my 1,200 truck
I
count to
understand.
600.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Because I think the roads and the citizens of Carver think what is going on right now, they can't take anymore. The town, the citizens can't, the roads can't. So I suggest a 600 daily truck limit per day in Carver. The other thing, which I've not mentioned before, and I've heard people on the committee speak about it, is that the local growers can't get sand when they need it. It's all going out, but none of it's staying locally. So I suggest that priority be given to the next permit holder who can set aside a % of sand that the committee would determine based on their knowledge and expertise of what the local growers need. I don't know. I mean, it's the first time I've introduced the idea, so I don't know if every permit should have a %. That's for the committee to decide. The important thing is that the local growers, the residents of Carver, be given priority to get some of this sand. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Moving on.
Before we get to the next item, I'd like to recuse myself as
Okay,
it
John.
pertains to a 80 Makepeace discussion.
You can recuse yourself. It's going to be quick. Don't go far. So, Mr. Mason has recused himself. He's no longer in the room. The only thing that's on here about 80 Makepeace is that they have withdrawn their permit application. So we won't be continuing that hearing. They have just plain withdrawn it for now.
Is there a location on the application?
There is, I don't have it in front of me. Do you know
Okay.
what it is, Jen? What the,
Map 131, lots 1, 2, and 1, 3.
there you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I knew we brought you in for a reason. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
If so, yes, go ahead.
Is there a reason why?
They've just sent us a letter that said they've withdrawn.
Is that permanent or is that you can do?
Right now,
Without prejudice.
right now, it's withdrawn.
And it's
And this is for the piece at 59 Federal.
Yeah, lot 131, Jen, what was it again?
Map 131, lots 1, 2, and 1-3, off Federal Road.
So, thank you. Can somebody see if John is out there and get him back in?
Can I ask a quick question here?
Sure.
So if the permit has been withdrawn,
The permit application.
okay, if the application has been.
Yes, sir.
withdrawn, And just supposing that Makepeace decides to clear that land and begin work anyway, what kind of recourse legally is there to prevent them from doing that?
So how it works is they come in front of the earth removal committee if they want to move sand off the site for sale. If they want to do an agriculturally exempt project on their own land, they can cut the trees, move the sand, and bring it from an AD Makepeace bog to another AD Makepeace bog, as long as it's not for sale. That is how the bylaw is written.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so in other words, if they want to move sand from one piece of their property to another, they can do whatever they want.
Within the rest of the Concom and all of that. But as far as earth removal goes,
Yeah.
they do not have to come in front of us for a permit.
Okay, do they have to come in front of you in order to clear land?
They do not.
They do? Okay, so in other words, if Makepeace so decides, they could clear that piece of land, 50 whatever acres at 59 Federal, the additional 59 acres at 59 Federal, and move that sand elsewhere if they decided to do that. They
To another one of their owned properties,
could do it on their own property.
for agricultural reasons, yes, they can.
Oh, okay, and the proof of agricultural reasons is?
Right now, we have none.
Who oversees that?
They do. It's the honor system. It's how it's how it works.
That's a relief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm just telling you the way the bylaw is written.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
You have to work within the law, yeah.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, so that was my question, who's monitoring this?
An agriculturally exempt activity,
You know, it's not really when they might be going across the street to read custom soils and selling it, you know, from there. And actually, you know, quite often, as you probably well know.
Well, they couldn't do
those
that.
tractor trailers come in and get loaded at the site that they're hauling the sand off. Then they drive over to Reed, get weighed, and leave. So that is a common practice. So really, you guys don't really know what's going on.
as far as,
There is no monitoring.
and listen, what,
For solar.
I think we're on a little bit of a hamster wheel here, and we've got a lot to get through
There's
today.
no hamster wheel, except
So-
in that industry.
Right now, that is what we have for a bylaw.
It needs to get better.
Again, that's not for me to decide, that is for the residents of town to decide.
No, they have to work with.
I know.
It's the bylaw, the way it's written, that's the guideline we have.
Well, I'm.
I know that you don't, I know that you're not happy with it, but that's what we have.
Yeah.
No, the bylaw does not allow Makepeace to run a sand and gravel operation on Federal Road for 20 years and never build the box. No, that's not exactly how it works. But
That's not what he was asking. I was answering his
that's the
question.
point, okay?
I understand the way you guys are driving to, I get that. The bylaw says that if they bring it from their bog to their bog, they don't need to come in front of the earth removal committee for a permit. That's how it goes. Okay? We're gonna move on and put, John, if you're out there, we're gonna move on to the fruit door.
No.
Yes.
Could use the exercise.
We did receive a letter a week or two ago from the lawyer from Frudor that asked to have this meeting continued, which we'll grant. We'll continue them to the very next meeting. That's on the assessors parcels 122-18, 122-10, 122-2, 122-4, and 5-2. So that will be continued to the February 4th meeting. If we can get a letter out to them, and just email is fine, and let them know that it's been continued to that date. All right, we'll now reopen the public hearing for the Route 44 Development LLC, located off of Green Park Way, also known as Montello Street, map 20, lot 2, for the public hearing for Bowler Engineering. Welcome back, George.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is George McLaughlin, and I am the co-owner of Route 44 Development LLC, which is the owner of this property. I'm here today with Alex Horgan from Boulder Engineering. Alex has been working with Zach Richards, who would have been here, but his wife went into labor, so he's having a baby today. So, and I think Alex is the brains of the operation anyway, so she's a very capable stand-in. I also have with me Mike Bissonette from my partner Bob Delholm's company, and Max Sherman from Charter Environmental, in case you have any questions about phasing or want to discuss things. They've been helping us with the phasing. And I also have Jim Begley here, who is our LSP, who's going to talk about the PFAS issue, which I know is of interest to the folks in the audience and to the board. And lastly, I have Joanna Layton, a Carver resident, and she is chairperson of the Carver Redevelopment Authority. And in speaking with Johanna and keeping her and her board up to date, she asked to come here today and speak in favor of the project. Without further ado, I think it would be helpful, since we met out at the site on December 28th and had a site walk, and the board raised a number of issues that they wanted to see us address. I'd like to quickly address those issues if I could, please.
Yes, please.
All right, if I could have the first slide. When we were on the site walk, one of the things that the board wanted to see was the location of the PFAS and where that was kept. That is shown in blue here. What we basically did, as you'll recall on the site walk, is we met out here, actually we met out here at Park Avenue. We proceeded into the property, and we paused here so that the board could get a feel for the size of the property and the neighboring properties and what have you. Then we went down into this area where there's an older building. Again, just to kind of look back at this property where the hill is located, again, to get a feel for the size of the property and what have you. Then what we did is we started to come back, and we came up on this road right here, and then we paused. And again, we looked back at the property, and the board took notice of what the neighborhood was like and what have you. And I think really what we have here is a very large industrial site, kind of a unique site in Carver, with residences off in the distance. And what we did here, when we paused here, everybody got out of their cars, and we walked across, and you could actually see the PFAS CAPI area, because it was delineated by a fence. One of the things the board asked at that time is we had a permit to bring clean fill into the property, and we did bring clean fill into the property, and you wanted to know how much we had brought in and where it was located. I've discussed it with the representatives from Charter, and we brought in 241,000 cubic yards of clean fill, and it's roughly located in this area. As we were driving, as you'll recall, when we were driving up on that mound, I believe, my memory is, I told the board, I think the clean fill is right underneath us, but I'm not sure. Since then, I have confirmed that. May I have the next slide, please? So, again, this shows you the cut and fill. The road we were on is roughly up in this area. You see the PFAS cap, and the fill material is here. We're not going to be removing any of that fill. You wanted that confirmed, and as a matter of fact, we aren't even cutting anywhere near in that area. So I wanted to point that out. Also, you wanted to know distances from the PFAS cap to areas where we would be disturbing. As you can see, up here, it's 430 feet away. In this location, it's 496 feet away. And in this location, it's 403 feet away. Next slide.
George, may I interrupt you before you move ahead? When you say disturbing, are you talking about removal of fill at that area, or where is your removal?
The removal, anywhere we are doing work, and one of the next slides will show it in more detail. But as you know, we're seeking a permit, we're doing a cut and fill, so a lot
Correct.
of the material staying on site. We're not touching this fill that we brought in for any of the cut and fill. That's staying there. This line that goes around the property, inside this line delineates where there's an activity of either a cut or a fill.
So my question to you is, for this board's sake,
Yes,
we are earth removal.
yes.
Every other board in town that you've been in front of, and there's been ample, are gonna deal with all the other cuts and fills of soil staying on the site. So the reason why I asked the question is where the PFAS was and how far away from your removal site. If you think you're 490 feet away from where you're gonna remove soil from, that's a good number. If you think you're 1,000 feet away, it's a different scenario, is why I was asking.
Yeah, you'll see it with, I think the next slide. will
Thank you.
Better answer that, but I want to also draw your attention to this. We were looking for a waiver of the 50-foot setback that's in the board's rules and regulations here, and you told us you did not like that. You thought it was too close to that property, and so we changed that.
Good.
So in that area, you will see, we're not doing anything within the 50 feet. We totally pulled that back. In this area here, and it will be shown in more detail on another slide, which is surrounded by wetlands and woods and what have you, we are within the 50 feet, but that's way away from any homes or anything else. So I think if I see the next slide, please, Alex. All right, this slide shows the PFAS cap, and it shows, like that. I mean, you can see the legend. These are. Well, I'm sorry. Am I blocking that, folks?
No, it's
No, we can't see the numbers for the elevation.
It's not.
You can see these numbers?
No,
You cannot see them.
can't read them. They're not clear enough. They're too fuzzy.
Oh, okay, well, if you want to come,
So we can do that as well, but just for the audience's knowledge, they have provided us in the slide deck that will in fact be put up in the next coming days on the earth removal website, so that you guys can look at it at will.
Are you gonna
After.
vote before people get to see it? Are you gonna vote?
I'm just telling you, in case of clarity's point, right now, today, you can go look at it, but there will also be available via slide deck on the earth removal website.
And it wasn't on the website before today?
This is new to us. You heard him say, we asked for some clarifications and some changes which they've made.
we had a site meeting at the site on December 28th, and the board told us things that they wanted us to improve and things that they wanted clarified, and so that's the purpose of today's,
Well, for purposes of a public hearing and the public being able to comment on your new plans, it would be helpful if the public had the plans in advance of the meeting, so they could look at them and come here and make comments and ask you questions.
This is true.
So, continue, please.
okay. So what you really see is, if you look at this, the cuts are really in the red area, which is the deep cuts are way far away. These fill areas in the blue shades, are up in that area. Net export of 480,000 cubic yards. Could I have the next slide, please? All right, now here, one of the things the board asked was a phasing. And what we have tried to do in the phasing is we have tried to do it in a way that we work our way forward and we leave this area to the last to kind of give a buffer from the road, if you will, which is, I think, one of the things the board wanted us to do. And also, we have interest from a couple of buyers to buy this lot here and this lot here. So that is why we started Phase 1A and Phase 1B here, so that we could come in and we could start to work our way into the property here, you know, leaving this as a buffer, leaving this as a buffer to the road and what have you. As you'll notice, 1A is a net export of 109,000 cubic yards. 1B is a net export of 88,000 cubic yards.
Net import?
Export.
No, export.
Yep.
In other words, here, we're cutting 114,000, we're filling 5,000 cubic yards.
Yep.
So 114,000 minus 5,000 is 109,000 cubic yards
Yep.
of net export. Here, we're, oh, I'm sorry, I had it backwards, you were right. Here, we're filling 110,000 cubic yards and cutting 22,000 yards. So, you know, that's a net fill operation. And two, we're cutting 161,000 cubic yards and filling 3,000. So that's a net export of 158,000 cubic yards. And then we start to get into 3A, that is cutting, this is the biggest cut obviously on the property. It's the hill that you see from the road, 223,000 cubic yards, filling 1,000, so it's a net export of 222,000 yards. And then 3B is a cut of 67,000 cubic yards, so that's net export. And then finally back here, 3C is a cut of 88,000 cubic yards, a fill of 80, so it's a net export of 8,000 cubic yards. Any questions there?
So just so phase 1 is pretty much all staying on site. You're moving roughly 100,000 yards from one place to the other.
Pretty much, yes.
So there won't be a lot of traffic in that phase 1?
Won't be a lot of traffic. And again, it depends. One thing, we have our bids starting to come in on the road. So, you know, I guess, and I don't know if I'm shooting myself in the foot by bringing this up, but we might as well discuss it. I suppose to a large degree, it depends on how quickly the contractor goes through here and can clear and grub and level the lots. So, but you're right, to answer your point, it's staying on property.
So the phasing we typically do is in relation to substantial completion of a phase. And if you're a net small number, 20,000 coming off, I would suggest that that would go relatively quickly. And at that point, you know, in the interest, if we were to approve this going forward, in the interest of expeditious, I would suggest that we need to be looking at when you're working, your trucks are leaving too, at that type of thing. And I'm speaking for me, I'm not speaking for the entire board.
Well, one thing I want to ask for is I was going to ask if I could have 70 trucks a day. Now, I know, and I know you folks don't want to hear that, okay? It doesn't hurt to ask. But let me say this. This site, and I hear what you're saying. I've spent my life making presentations like this to juries and what have you. But our site is a very unique site, I'd urge you to find. Actually, we had, when we were bringing in the fill, you know, and Joanna will speak to this, Chairperson Layton, I should say.
That's so fun.
This was a decadent, blighted site when we bought it. This site was a mess. There was all kinds of dumping going on here. There was all kinds of cement and what have you. And so as part of our permits to clean up this site, we were bringing in clean fill We were also crushing a lot of the material that was left on site, and it's a completely different site than it was when we first bought and assembled the site. We cleaned the site all up. And we had a crushing operation going on there. We had we had days, and the folks from Charter here, and they can talk about it, we had 100 trucks in and out of the property. There was a big operation going on there. We didn't have one complaint. We did not have one complaint. And I say that because, as you all know, it's a unique site, and I think the board obviously has been out there, and many of you folks have been out there. Since we've put in our new access road with a light, you basically come out of our property, you take a right, and you're on Route 44. You're not going past any houses, you're not doing anything. Now, that is not to say, because I don't know where the sand and gravel is going, I think the bulk of it will go to Route 44. But I heard this woman saying that there isn't enough sand for local bog owners. So for all I know, some local bog owner wants to buy some sand from us to bring to his or her.
Contaminated soil.
Pardon me?
It's contaminated, and the EPA.
No, it's not, well, I will get into that. It's not contaminated. The contaminated soil, we're not touching, and I have an
The
LSP.
contaminated, the EPA says the contaminated soil should have been removed.
Can you let him finish for us? Well, I'm going to let you get to that later on.
Yeah, okay, because
I will.
that's really important. You're spending all this money, and you don't really solve the real problem.
We'll get to you when his presentation is over. Thank you.
So in any event, this is a very unique site, right out of the property, the bulk of it going to Route 44. You know, I would ask you for 70 trucks a day so that we can get it done. And we can get it done promptly. And as I say, we've been having 100 trucks a day going in and out of that property and haven't had one complaint. Next slide, please. All right, what this slide shows is it shows, Green Parkway up here. We pulled back what we're doing. We're doing nothing inside the 50-foot area. But we are going within the 50-foot area down in here. But again, it's all, there are huge amounts of woods and wetlands as a buffer there. So I'd ask for that waiver. And Alex, could you tell us, down in this area where we go inside the 50 feet, how much do we invade that 50-foot buffer by? What's the most, 18 feet, or what is it? In other words, we go 32 feet to the property line, or how close?
We are Alex Horgan, Bowler Engineering. We're right, so within those, if you look at those dashed lines off the property is where that wetlands and those wetland buffers are. So we're grading basically 5 foot up to our property line
Okay.
in those wetland buffer areas.
5 feet. So you're taking out 45 feet?
So let's let them get through this, please, and then you can ask for that later on.
Next slide. All right, now we're getting to the PFAS situation. We didn't put the PFAS there, we found it, we've dealt with it, the DEP is happy, we have a remedy operation status, and I have our LSP, Jim Begley, here to discuss that. But just to kind of foreshadow his discussion, we found PFAS in 3 areas. Right here in very small amounts, it was in the groundwater.
Can you show where the Whetstone Brook is in conjunction with the PFAS site?
Mr. Begley will show you that. I just want to touch this briefly. We found it here, which is the location of the former sludge plant. It was not found, the PFAS was not found in any soil there, but when the sludge came out of that plant, it was septic sludge that came in, and the outfall came out, and it went down, and it was in the
Whetstone Brook.
no, it was in, that's not the Whetstone Brook. The Whetstone Brook is down in this area.
The
It got it.
engineer, your engineer.
So can you be polite to him, so you guys will get, you'll get the same consideration when you're talking. So just please, just, Thank you, George.
And so it got into the groundwater there. Now, in this area, this is where the most concentration of PFAS was found. And that was found in connection with the permit that the city of Marlborough received from Carver to bring in material. And so what we did is we basically took the material pursuant to a plan with the DEP and put it all in one location and capped it. Again, I'll let Jim Begley discuss that in detail. Next slide, please. Again, Mr. Begley will go over this, but here's the area where it was found in the groundwater. Here are the other two areas where it was found. And what Mr. Begley will tell you is Heather's Path is up here. I think most of the folks from Heather's Path. The groundwater flow is away from Heather's Path, so it's physical impossibility for it to get into their wells. Next slide, please. Again, this shows Heather's Path. Heather's Path up in this area. The Whetstone Brook is down in this area. This is another area of Plimpton. This area of Plimpton, interestingly, is on town water. And the reason why it's on town water is because the wells in this area were affected by the Middleborough landfill. So that's why those are on town
That's Ravenbrook
water.
you're talking about?
No, the Ravenbrook was across the street. That was Anglican Industries. That's across Route 44. These properties were affected by the town of Middleborough landfill, which is right there. Next slide, please. All right, now we're back to the beginning. So if we could, Alex, if we could go back 3 slides so that I could have Jim. Yeah, let's have Jim Begley, our licensed site professional. Jim's a very experienced fellow. He's been at this for 30 years, and he's done all of the testing and come up with the plan to resolve the PFAS issue to the DEP's satisfaction. He's in charge of the monitoring. So without further ado, as they say, I'll let Mr. Begley explain the PFAS situation.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, everyone.
And Jim, if you could keep your voice up.
Sure. Jim Begley, I'm a licensed site professional. My company is MT Environmental Restoration, and I have been working in this area for many years. One of the first things I wanted to point out on this figure and this map is that
Jim, you really have to keep your voice up. I think some of these folks are having a hard time.
Okay, no problem. So one of the things that you saw earlier was the layout of the cut and fill project with the earlier maps. I wanted to point out that this orientation in this figure is different because we used a north-up orientation, and in the figures you were seeing earlier, north is down in this direction. So just so you can get the lay of the land, Route 44 is right here, Route 58 is over here. This is the west, that's the east, north, south. The 3 areas that George mentioned that we discovered PFAS contamination were associated with sources of wastewater residuals. So wastewater residuals are materials that come from wastewater treatment. In the case of this location, there was a septage treatment plant that took in septage from septic tanks and other sources, put it through a biological treatment process, and discharged what was considered at the time clean water to these sand filter beds. What they weren't testing for and what they weren't looking for back then was PFAS, because it's a newer emerging contaminant that has been found more recently. In recent years, it's had a lot of research and clearly is a compound that you do not want in your water. Okay? So what we found here is there was some residual PFAS in the groundwater.
Can you please speak up?
Oh, sure. There was some residual PFAS that was in the groundwater. This was greater than the state's GW1 standard, so it was a concern. And we found, when we investigated, that it was migrating in a westerly direction, okay? There were two additional sources.
Could you just show where westerly is, so?
In this direction. So from here down towards the Whetstone Brook, okay?
Yes, because, excuse me,
Mr. Chairman, if he could be allowed to finish his presentation, and then we can have as many questions, it's your meeting to run, but it's. if he
So
can-
let me do that.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll get to any questions you have.
And Jim, if you need to sit for the audience at a microphone, that also doesn't hurt. Feel free. If that'll help the audience.
Sure, everybody can hear.
he can't
I can point,
It's up to you guys, is what I'm trying to give a little bit of option.
I can point, he can talk.
All right,
So put that thing right close to your mouth, my friend, and
will do. Okay.
Before we go any further, could you give me a time frame of when this investigation began? How
Yes.
long ago are we talking?
Right, so we
Jim,
discovered,
pull the mic up to you.
Right up. okay. How's that? Can everybody hear me fine now? Good.
Good.
All right, so we discovered PFAS in groundwater in 2020. That's when we first discovered it. It was in the spring of 2020, and we immediately notified DEP that we had made that discovery. It was above reportable concentrations. And these are things that need to be regulated under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, the Mass General Law, Chapter 21E. As a licensed site professional, I'm authorized through my state license and the DEP to investigate these kinds of things and determine exactly what needs to be done. But I work in conjunction with the DEP as these things go forward. So what we did in the spring of 2020 is we notified DEP, we talked to them about the concerns that we had, and it was decided the first thing to do was a rapid investigation of the groundwater hydrogeology so we could figure out where is this groundwater contamination going, which is the primary concern.
Alex, you gotta work the slides.
At the same time,
Let's go to the next slide. Alex,
all right, so this is a figure from one of the reports that we produced as we went forward. There's a lot of information on that figure. It's not one that you're going to be able to see a lot of detail on from the distance in the audience. But again, I'll point out there's the 3 locations where we found contamination at the sand filter beds, and then there were 2 areas down to the west, southwest part of the site where we found a biosolids material. So this is also a wastewater residual, but this is something that comes from the sludge from wastewater treatment plants. And in investigating it, we found out that it came from the city of Marlboro's wastewater treatment plant. And it was brought to the site by a contractor that had leased property from the then owner of the property prior to Route 44's purchase.
let me pause you there for a minute. Did you used to work for the DEP?
I did,
How many years did you work for the DEP?
11 years.
And what type of things did you do when you worked for the DEP?
Exactly this kind of investigation, overseeing these types of investigations and response to oil spills and hazardous material spills.
Okay, now, was this material brought in from the city of Marlboro pursuant to a permit issued by the town of Carver and the DEP?
Yes.
Okay, please continue with your description. sir.
Okay. So what we did on the site, and you can see when you get a chance to look at this figure closer, is that we mapped the groundwater contours, which you can see in kind of purple lines,
All right, let's
if you can
pause
point
there-
out.
Let's pause there for a minute.
so George, if you can do me a favor and if you can let him finish.
I just wanted to point out, are these the lines that you're talking about?
Yes. Right.
And what do those lines show?
So basically, those are the elevations of groundwater across the site measured with monitoring wells. We put in hundreds of monitoring wells on the property to get this contour. And basically, groundwater flows perpendicular to that contour. And we were able to track groundwater flow both by looking at the elevation of the groundwater and by looking at the concentration of PFAS from these sources and track exactly where it goes. What we found was that it moves down gradient towards the Whetstone Brook. And this figure shows, with blue arrows, the direction of groundwater flow. You can see that in the northern part of that, kind of right in the middle of that picture, there's a blue arrow that is going southwesterly, the next one up. Yeah, southwesterly. That's coming down from the hill in Plimpton towards the Whetstone Brook and the bogs that are there. And then if we move to the next arrow south, you can see it's coming from the vicinity of the wastewater treatment plant that had a sand filter bed and a groundwater discharge. It's flowing from there towards the Whetstone Brook. And then if we move to the other two locations, flow is more to the northwest towards the Whetstone Brook. It's like a bowl. Water's flowing down into that bowl at the Whetstone Brook and the bogs that are down towards Prospect Road.
Have
Okay.
you tested the water in the Whetstone Brook as well?
Yes, we have. So what we found was that the concentration in the groundwater directly down gradient of these sources had concentrations above the DEP standard, and that's a problem. We had to investigate this fully. We had to define the sources, which we did, and then we had to come up with an action plan to address all of this. But the very first thing we did, once we had these points of groundwater flow, is we worked with the DEP evaluating where private wells were located, and we were able to determine that there was no flow towards any private wells. We also were able to determine that the groundwater in the vicinity of the site, the sources that we have here, all discharges to the Whetstone Brook in that immediate vicinity, and it doesn't migrate further. So there's a beginning of these plumes of groundwater contamination, and there's an end. The end is at the Whetstone Brook. The groundwater concentrations were above the standards of concern for PFAS, but the concentration in the Whetstone Brook is far below any level of concern for PFAS. So,
I'm going to break you guys
Yeah.
there because we've got a ton of burning questions.
okay.
Your audience has been very patient, and I thank you all for it. So if you guys can remain up there, and we're going to be methodical about this. Let's not yell and scream if we could. It'd make it a lot easier. I'm going to give you the time. So I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
My name is Rebecca.
Well, could you,
Nice to meet you all.
Mr. Chairman, can we have an address, a name and address?
No, I'm not
So-
giving my address.
So Rebecca's fine. Yep.
Thank you. I just want to say that
If you can stand up, I've got a.
But we come up to the microphone like we have everybody else do.
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, can she come up to the microphone?
Yes, Rebecca, if all you guys could come up to the microphone, and then
I think
we'll,
can everybody hear me?
Nope.
no, and what I'd like to do is have you come to the microphone. That would be,
Yeah, you're blocking.
that would be beneficial.
Sit down.
So, Jim, if you can be off to the side?
Yeah.
So that we can see all the questions.
First of all, there
Thank
is PFAS in Plimpton. I want you to know that it was found in people's wells, okay? In October, I think it was 19th, the Conservation Commission came before, you guys came before the Conservation Commission, and some members on the Conservation Commission said, you need to remove that soil. I want to know why that wasn't done. I mean, that's what the EPA recommended. And now it's in the Whetstone Brook, in the soil, and everywhere else. And people's wells in Plimpton are being polluted. Okay? So you're spending all this money doing all this, yet you're not taking care of the humans that live around it. It's going to be nothing but problems for us, especially if you take out all that sand.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rebecca, and I'll ask the applicant to respond to some of these questions
Certainly.
as well.
In October 19 was the Concom meeting, which was a couple of years ago, that Alan Germain said, get that dirty dirt out of here. We want it gone.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I,
Putting a Band-Aid on it with hydroflow. Has anybody done hydrology?
so if you can let them respond to your question, that'd be super.
So
Okay,
you're telling me Plimpton doesn't have PFAS water? Yes, they do.
I'm telling you that
Jim, you have to
Plimpton
keep
does
your-
not-
Jim, you have to keep your voice up. You gotta
I-
put the microphone right up.
right there. Okay. So Plimpton, I'm sure, has PFAS in its groundwater, as in every town in Massachusetts. There's PFAS in groundwater. I personally live in the town of Duxbury. We have lots of PFAS in the groundwater in Duxbury.
They have more now because they're taking that soil next to the contaminated dump over there. and bringing it to
There are
Duxbury.
multiple sources, unfortunately, of PFAS. It's ubiquitous in our culture and in our clothing. And these sources get into groundwater in a multitude of ways. One way it gets into groundwater is through septic systems. The same way that PFAS gets into the wastewater that was brought to this site and the wastewater sludge that was brought to this site, it gets into septic systems from washing clothing that has PFAS on it.
This was
Mr.
irresponsible permitting.
If you,
I'm trying to
let me run the meeting if
explain
you would.
why I think you might
This
have.
needs to happen.
Listen, if you're permitting these projects, you have to know what the end result is. And this is what happened here in Carver. You guys allowed this stuff to happen, okay? That waste treatment sludge didn't get there by itself. It was permitted, and nobody followed up or monitored it. And now you're affecting every single person's ability to drink clean water. And not just only this town, but Plimpton and everywhere else.
So
okay?
Thank you.
We investigated the groundwater at this site, and we investigated where it's going, and we determined that it is not affecting private wells in Plimpton or Carver.
Well, you're wrong about that.
Well, you're asking him the question, he's giving you his answer.
I'm giving you a,
I happen to live on Prospect Road.
okay. but-
So there was a question behind you, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Now you get my answer.
My name is Michelle Rothfuss.
Yeah, I'm sorry? You can move right up. Michelle, what was your last name?
Last name's Rothfuss, and I live on Montello Street. So this is the deal I have right now.
But can you be closer to the mic?
Oh, sure. I don't talk loud anyway. You made a comment about when I call it the road to nowhere, was built, that there was 100 trucks a day and there was no complaints. I have now lived in our house a little over 3 years. Right after we moved into it, that summer, we had a newborn baby in the house. My house shook.
what year was this?
Like 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, when the road, green space road got put in there. My house shook. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I look out and there's this big tractor trailer going by. I'm like, what is this? And next thing you know, there's another one. It's a dirt road, a one-lane dirt road. The very beginning of the road, it says, no trucks. There is a sign that says, no trucks. I took my grandson, put him in the stroller. We went down to where they were working. And I asked, I said, what's going on here? Like, nobody told us anything, but you have your trucks coming down our road, shaking our house, ruining our road. And you just said there was no complaints. I can tell you right now, there was many complaints, many, many complaints. We were not told the truth. I was told, oh, it's going to be a couple weeks, maybe 1 or 2 trucks a day, nothing to worry about. It wasn't. It started early in the morning and it went into the evening. And I was lied to time and time again. Now, we got the Plimpton Police involved. We had to have a sign, a literal sign put at the end of our road so the trucks wouldn't come in. And it should never have happened.
I agree with you.
And then there's a little cutway that I would take the stroller down to go to Tractor Supply or the dollar store. I can't even do that now because the person that was doing the road before decided to bring his trucks up through a cutway. A cutway that is never supposed to have a truck on it. But there was no complaints. I can tell you I complained all the time. I went down there all the time and complained. And I don't know, did they think I was stupid or something, that I didn't matter? Like, is that going to happen again with your 70 trucks a day?
I'll tell you, I'll give you my cell phone number. I apologize to you. That should not
That-
happen.
but-
Well, if I could just finish, I'm happy, you know, what is gonna happen, because this is really, I'm gonna be in charge of this earth removal situation, and I apologize to you. That should not have happened. I understand your frustration.
Yes.
I will give you my cell phone number, so you don't have to go hunting at a trailer or whatever. You call me up on my
No, I
cell
went
phone.
right down to the trucks.
Well, you call me on my cell phone, and I answer that 24/7, and
But
that will not
I
happen.
was told, though, I was told by the owner of the company, the owner, he even stopped
Who
in
was
front of
that?
my house.
Who was that?
It was Landers.
PA Landers, that's when they were
Yes.
building.
The
that
road.
When they're building the
Yes,
road.
when they
Yeah.
were building the road. He even stopped at my house
He was working for the town. He wasn't
and
working for
said,
me.
oh no, it's, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And when we complained, they dumped their trash in front of our house. Not only did they ruin our road, I have no confidence in this right now. Like, I don't want a paved road. We bought this house because it's in a quiet area, it's on a dirt road. I don't want trucks coming down my road. I don't want trucks going through that cut-through that should never have been there. I want it blocked off. I don't care, just fire, whatever. You need to block it off so the trucks do not come down our road and ruin what is already there.
Look at, Landers built that road.
Yes,
Through a Mass Works grant that the
Yes.
town obtained. Okay?
yes.
I apologize again, that never should have happened.
But I'm talking to you just
No,
like
no,
I
and I'm
spoke to
telling you,
him.
I'll give you my cell phone, and you can give my son George there, your name and everything. And let me tell you something, I'm no shrinking violet, and people who are working for me are, I mean, if I get complaints, that's going down.
He didn't care.
Well, no, let me tell you something. I don't want complaints, all right? And people I hire to do things are gonna do them right, or they're gonna hit the road, okay?
Right.
And so one thing.
Because we're not far from
One
there.
thing, if I could just finish.
Let's speed it along here. We'll get to
Yeah.
the next question. And I understand the
was gonna say,
concern.
one thing we might want to do, and it's up to everybody in
In our Heather's Path in our
Heather's Path
area.
in Plimpton is, we could put some kind of a gate there, so it's physically impossible for trucks to go that way.
But will they use that cutway? That, I can't even take a stroller down now. My
well, we gotta-
grandson
as the
can't
chairman
ride his
says, we have to
bike.
Move it along. I'll work with you, do anything.
I'm not familiar with what you're calling the cutway. I do apologize.
Okay. When you're the Tractor Supply area, that
Yep.
whole plaza.
Yep.
There is a cutway. It looks like a driveway. It's a cutway that we take strollers down, the kids take their bikes
Yeah, it's-
down.
what it
So
is,
is it the old street that used to go through,
Yes,
past Tractor Supply?
Yeah.
No, not Tractor
no.
Supply, I'm sorry, past Auto Shop. So they blocked the road
Before
off,
that.
right?
They, actually, what they did was, because they couldn't come down Montello, they went through the plaza area
Yep.
where Tractor Supply is, that road there, and came up behind.
So, okay, you're on the north side of.
Yes,
Okay, I
we're right
understand.
at Heather's
There's a little
Path, and,
path
So it,
behind
Yes.
the mall.
yes.
You can get up onto Montello Street.
And that's
okay.
where they were bringing in the large trucks.
Sure.
And they've ruined that now. Like, we can't even go down there with his bike. He has to pick up
So-
his bike and go down.
while you're sitting here, may I ask you if They came out of that Green Parkway on the new asphalt headed towards the Dunkin' Donuts and the Aubuchon. Would that be?
That's what that road is supposed to be for.
Correct.
That is supposed to be for that project.
That's correct.
Correct? Up to, what is it, Parkway? Is that what it is?
Park Ave.
Park Ave. Up to that point. Is that
Yeah.
not where it's supposed to be?
So I'm asking you
Yes.
if
If there is a gate at that point, that's fine.
well, I don't know that we can gate off a public road, certainly, but what we can do is condition, if we were to get to that point, we can condition that when the trucks come out of the Green Parkway, they go right
I can't,
and not left.
but I can't take a word for that because
And I
That's not a
understand
word,
your,
that's an order of conditions that goes in the
But we can
permit.
I can
also
understand your
hire-
concern.
enforceable.
We can
That's
hire
enforceable.
someone to enforce that.
because we're in Plimpton, we're not in
Right.
Carver.
Yeah.
so,
You know,
The
that's
Carver
why
earth
I'm saying,
removal-
oh, it's part of Carver.
We can
don't have to
dictate the
worry about
directions
that.
of the trucks from the site
correct.
through orders of
Which
conditions.
you never enforce, let's face it.
Because it wasn't enforced last time, and it's really too bad. I mean, if you drove down.
So you're
our
talking
road
about the
now-
construction period when PA was doing the work.
Yes, yes.
So,
If you drove down our road now, you would be ashamed. Like, it was such a nice road.
sure.
And now, it's like got divots in it, it's just like holes in it. It's like, and we have it graded, and it still comes back because of those trucks.
I'm happy to fix it, you know, the road.
I don't want to
Well, you'd have to talk with the town of Plimpton at
Yeah,
that
no,
point,
but I
right?
mean,
So,
all I'm saying is a show of good faith.
sure.
Yeah, because it's just, I mean, I know it's a dirt road, but it's our road.
Sure.
Look, I'm happy to work with the
Okay.
town, do
So
whatever you want.
you guys understand what the concern is here?
Yeah, truck traffic.
Michelle, thank you. We've heard you.
Thank you
And
very
thank
much,
you.
I appreciate it.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And I'm sorry again, shouldn't have happened.
Can you just let us know who you are, please?
Yep,
Thank
Jean
you.
Winslow, 28 Heather's Path. Right off the bat, I have a couple of things to say. First of all, I'm a little confused why the RDA, when you welcomed her, that she's your friend and she's on your side for this. Doesn't that just kind of go against a few things that you would appear on their side as a public person with the RDA?
No,
Isn't that a conflict?
we own this project. The urban renewal plan project is owned by the redevelopment.
Just seems like a conflict of interest for me that you would appear on their side as, for them at a public meeting. That's all.
Well, I'm
So
also
I
a
have,
resident.
but you're here from the RDA as the chairperson. That's what you're here for. So
Okay, so-
I'm gonna, that's what I want to say for that. And second, when we were at the planning board committee, which I'm looking forward to tonight as well,
That's been continued.
tonight's meeting has been?
Yeah.
Since when?
This
It was-
afternoon,
Tom Bott is sick.
Tom Bott's sick and they couldn't get their, Andy Klein's, the peer review comments in, so that's been continued.
Okay. So at that meeting, and continuously, we've talked about that there was going to be 480,000 cubic yards of soil removed or exported from that site. And now it's down to what, 22,000 cubic?
No, the total volume is that 480. We've just asked them to break it up into phasing.
Of being removed?
Correct,
Okay.
480, give or take.
So that left about, I believe, because I think they do it based off of 10-wheelers, so that's like 19,000 trucks, if my calculations are correct.
So it's going to depend on the contractor, what they use for trucks, but it goes by truck trip, whether it's in a pickup, you know, if you load a yard of dirt in a pickup, or if you load a load in a tractor trailer.
So
it's
we could guesstimate, we're
Right,
we're
that's
around 15 to 20,000 trucks. Your bylaws state that it's 50 trucks per day?
That is up to this board to issue however many truck trips per day.
It's not in the
We see fit
bylaw.
for the site.
Okay.
It's not in the bylaw, and it does vary by site. We've been using 50 as a general rule of thumb.
Okay. So then, on that note, because I believe at the beginning of it, and I wasn't positive what it was that they were, what area they were talking about, but regarding the dust issue, because I also read on like the Carver Town page, there was a major dust issue, so I'm not sure if that's what you guys were talking about, right? So what is going to be the mitigation on that for this area? Because, I mean, it is a wind tunnel back there, that's,
Great question. George?
Yes, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use, and it's in our phasing, we're gonna use, there's a couple of different options we have. all of which work. One of them is obviously water trucks. The other thing is to seed an area after it's disturbed and loam it. And we're going to have trucks and we're going to have people on site. And believe me, we're going to be on top of that, on that dust control. And again, you know what? I'll give you my cell phone, okay? Because I'm telling you, so people start calling my cell phone, and I'm gonna be a very unhappy camper. And that contractor is gonna be a really unhappy camper. So my attitude is, if I'm in your situation, I don't wanna be calling Carver Town Hall and getting bounced around all the place. The best I can say to you is, buck stops here, call me, and I'm telling you, when I'm paying somebody a lot of money to do a job right, and they ain't doing it right, and I'm getting calls on Sunday when I'm trying to relax, it's not gonna end well for the person who causes that problem.
Actually, good thing that you mentioned Sunday. As far as earth removal goes, and when that does take place, we do ask, and I think I can speak for everybody in our area, if it is limited to Monday through Friday, not the weekends. And then, as far as
So can I ask you just a question?
Sure.
Hours of operation would 7 to 5 work for you for 5 days a week to give up the half a day Saturday?
I'm sorry? Well, I think that
So
might be
I'm just
a little bit
asking,
difficult. I mean,
for the board's purview to understand what you guys, if we would approve this project, what you'd be able to accept.
I mean, I
Not
can't.
happy with is a wrong term,
Right,
right?
I can't speak for anyone else regarding that. Daytime hours are, I mean, I'm an anomaly because I get up very early. But I do work from home, so there I get to, be around for all of that. So like I said, I would have to defer that to the majority of the others, because that's, normal time. I mean, my husband's in construction, he works normal construction hours.
And hence, that's the reason why I asked, because I also like my free time.
Yeah.
And in order to get the project accomplished in a reasonable amount of time, so we're not talking about years.
Right.
It's a mathematical equation. How many
Yeah.
trucks per day, how many yards there is, how many days we do it for. So that's why I asked the hour question.
Yeah, just like I said, I personally would prefer just weekdays to whatever the hours are for that.
Yep, heard you.
Regarding the contaminated material that was brought in from Marlboro, was Carver aware that that was being brought in, and was that permitted to be brought in?
So importing any soil is not part of the earth removal committee's purview. A town, and I'm not passing the buck. I just got here to the removal committee a year ago, so that would have been before my time anyhow.
Yep, I totally understand that, but that's, I guess, more of a question to why it wouldn't be exported.
I can answer that. Yes, they knew. Yes, they knew what was going on, and they permitted, but there was no follow-up. That's the problem with this town. You have 3 major PFAS sites within a mile and 2 miles from each other, all leaching, and they're gonna take.
So Rebecca, thank you for answering the question. I do appreciate that, because that was, again, before my time.
In here, there's people who, PFAS is cancer causing, it causes all sorts of health issues. So I am really concerned, and the boards aren't monitoring. They permit.
So let's cut to the chase. Let me ask you the question. We're here to remove earth. They're here for a permit to remove 480,000 yards to build an industrial park, right?
Deny it.
So here is the question.
Deny it.
Let me ask Rebecca the question, please.
Okay.
We're talking about PFAS soil that you say is contaminating the ground. And I'm not telling you you're wrong, I'm just telling you what you said,
It's in
right?
people's wells.
Okay. Do you want to leave it there, or are we removing it?
No, EPA says the best thing to do with PFAS contamination is to remove it.
So that is the answer to my question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's what they should be doing. He's got the money, you should do it.
So thank you.
So that
I'm
goes
sorry,
back
Jean.
to my thing about my
Yeah.
question
Yes,
regarding
please.
the soil being there. Why is it not being removed? And I understand the whole gist of the way that the water is flowing and stuff like that, but I'm assuming that's flowing from groundwater that flows in that area. So when the soil is removed, or the earth is removed from the site, how are you going to guarantee that that water continues to flow in a westward direction? Was it west? Is that the direction it was going in? But how are you going to keep that water from going in that direction? Because once you move soil, it changes the direction of the flow.
Okay, great question.
If we could
Yep.
just pause for 2 seconds. Jim, I think in answering that question, if you could describe the process with the DEP. We went through the DEP.
Right.
Who, as you know, the Mass Department of Environmental Protection
No,
is in
economic
charge.
Promotion.
Pardon me?
Department of Economic Promotion, you mean?
Jim,
All right, so,
could you tell them where the Whetstone Brook goes?
So we have a
Yes.
question for our applicant here.
I
so.
actually have heard,
Jim,
I've
hold
heard,
on a second. If you could, as part of that answer, describe what happened with the DEP and also describe the cap that we put
It's a
in
Band-Aid.
place.
Okay.
You don't need to know.
So
All
just
right.
let him answer if you
Let
would,
me-
please.
let me answer a couple, I've heard a couple of questions, and I want to help explain the situation.
So put that mic right close to your mouth so everybody
Okay.
at home can hear you too.
All right, so when we were investigating this and defining the problem, we identified a very large amount of PFAS-contaminated material in the location where we capped. And we found a smaller area that was just to the northwest of that. We looked at all feasible options, all options to consider feasibility of what to do. We considered taking the material off-site for disposal. When we investigated that, what we found was the only option that was available for off-site disposal was to excavate the material. There were going to be thousands of trucks carrying that material, leaving the site, and that material would have to be shipped to Worcester, where it would be transferred to rail lines, and then it would be shipped to a landfill in Ohio. That was the, I'm looking at feasible options for disposal. When we looked at that, there were a number of things that had to be considered. One is, what's the environmental impact of that?
Human health, I hope.
Human health, the effect of those trucks, that's another human health aspect. We looked at all these things, and we looked at the cost, because everything has to be considered in the light of cost.
What about the environmental factor for, every wild living being living in that brook? Or anything that is
Okay,
drinking
let me-
that water?
Let me finish.
The birds and the eagles that live there.
All right, hang on a second, let me explain this.
Let's explain where
Yeah,
that
help
Whetstone
oh
Brook
God,
goes.
here, so just
Right, okay.
help me.
So, as we investigated this, we were in regular communication with Angela Gallagher at Mass DEP, who is a section chief that oversees these types of cleanups. Okay? Angela and her staff person, Navpreet Borolowski, came out to the site multiple times to look at the situation as we were investigating it. And we discussed options with them of what we could do with it and what we should do with it. And we came up with a plan. And the plan was to consolidate the material from the second location, which was smaller, combine it with the large amount of material. It was an 8-acre area of PFAS-contaminated soil. Combine it and put in a cap. That cap is a very strong, long-lasting cap that prevents all water from percolating through that contaminated material. At the surface, there's a couple of feet of topsoil and grass, first of all. Then there's an impermeable liner material that is covering that entire area and sealed so that no water can go through.
What about underneath all that stuff?
And-
No?
right.
You know about hydroflow, right? You know
Right, yeah.
hydraulic.
And what drives transferring the PFAS from that soil to the groundwater, which is below, is infiltration of precipitation through that area. We've cut off all that infiltration of precipitation. We also know that there is a certain amount of PFAS which is already in the groundwater below that material. That is going to take a very long time to flush out. And as that flushes out, it moves with the groundwater flow to the Whetstone Brook. The Whetstone Brook was analyzed upstream, downstream, and we determined that the concentrations in the brook as a result of the groundwater discharge, and we studied that hydrogeology very closely with a number of monitoring wells and measurements of stream flow to determine exactly what was happening, and that discharges, but it's at levels that are minuscule compared to levels that would be of concern for the environment, for the animals that live along the brook.
Is that why there's like 18, 19 test wells around that brook and around the Middleborough dump? So you've got every...
So there's investigation for the Middleborough dump that's done by others. That's not something we were directly involved in.
Can you let him finish, please?
Yeah, but I just want to...
No, please just let him finish. Thank you.
So we put in a lot of monitoring wells, including in the neighborhood in Plimpton, to assess the groundwater flow and determine that this plume discharges to the brook. No question about that. But the risk associated with that is not a level of concern. And DEP agreed with that. It is not a level of concern. It's way below the standards.
On Prospect Road, did you, anybody in this organization test the wells on Prospect Road or any of the...
No, because we were able to determine where this plume goes.
I'm telling you, you were wrong.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that there are wells in Plimpton and even on Prospect Road that have PFAS. But what I know from my work is that PFAS comes from multiple sources. As I mentioned, it comes from septic systems. There's PFAS in the rainwater as it falls out of the sky. Okay.
So just let him get through it. Just let him get through it, please.
There was PFAS sprayed when the state was spraying for mosquitoes, for Triple E.
So please, let him finish.
There's multiple sources. And I understand that you have PFAS in the groundwater and at these wells, but it's not coming from this site. So there's nothing we can do at this site that would fix that.
Except for remove it and incinerate it. Like
It would not, removing it would not, removing the PFAS soil would not fix a groundwater problem that
This
comes
is going
from a
back and
different
forth,
problem.
and I'm going to go back to Jean. She's been sitting up here very patiently while you guys have been, no, please don't.
Did you?
Please do not. Jean, it's your floor. Sorry. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, my pleasure. So back, forget where I was at there, regarding the soil removal. So does that seep down? So I'm assuming, so it composts basically in there, right? And it will float down? Because you stated that you've done something to stop it from floating, but that didn't, don't have something underneath
So
it.
we don't have something underneath it, and this material was there for more than 20 years. So that material had leaked PFAS down into the groundwater. And PFAS is a compound that does not break down biologically. It also has some characteristics that make it stick around for a while. Some of it migrates, some of it stays adhered to the soil in the groundwater system. Some of it adheres to the air-water interface at the top of the water table, and it prevents it from migrating. So that is a long-term problem. And it's not a problem that could be fixed by taking this soil away. It's going to be a long-term problem. Fortunately, we were able to determine that down gradient of that area, there's no risk from this site. There is very likely PFAS from other sources, but no PFAS from this site. And therefore, this solution works at the site, and DEP has approved of this in our discussions. And so it's a very exact thing that's been done.
You're working
And-
for the petitioner, right?
Yes, and I'm a licensed site professional, so I'm licensed to do this work. I have ethical requirements through my license that I adhere to. I have obligations to the DEP to make sure I cover all the bases on what has to be done with these investigations before we get to this kind of endpoint. And I also, because I communicate with DEP, have been able to ascertain that they agree with me.
So this is Jean's floor.
Okay, and just to touch back on what Michelle had said, and this comes from long before you moved in there regarding the road and putting up a gate. It's impossible to put a gate there to block anything off because that would make Heather's Path a dead-end road, and then it's longer than, I think it can only be like a half a mile or something like that, whatever the distance is. But that's something that we discussed with the RDA numerous times, and that had gone through, so that's not something. But regarding the roads and Green Parkway, as we mentioned, so it's probably not for this board, but now the planning board's, just to be clear, that is not happening tonight.
I don't know that. This is the Earth Removal Committee. I'm sorry, I don't know
So,
anything
the
about
planning
what the other
board
boards are
committee,
doing.
not tonight
Not
for you.
tonight. I'm not going to be there. We have continued it today. No one from my team is going to be there.
Okay.
So I've been told by Michelle Bremer, because Tom Vaught is sick, so that was another reason it had to be continued. And Andy Kleins, who is the peer reviewer for the town, has not gotten his peer review in. So if we went ahead with the planning board, there was really nothing anyone could
Okay.
discuss intelligently.
So my last and final thing is, if anything is to be done, trucks have to take a right turn out of that road or be fined, because that's the only way you're going to affect them is if they turn there, put a big sign up that says they're going to be fined $1,000, I don't know, whatever it is, but that's the only, because that's been discussed numerous times. And as I said at the other meeting, we need sidewalks on that area of Green Parkway. So thank you for your
Thank you very much.
discussion.
We had one up front here?
Dagmar Ryan, 14 Lillian Way, Carver. I'm a little late to the party, and I was here for something else, but in summary, so there's a polluted site that it's best to leave capped, but you're here to get a permit to remove other dirt, right? And that's to make room for development.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. So the earth removal is going to permit whether or not they can get rid of the dirt. Now, is the dirt that you're moving contaminated? No, right?
Yeah.
Right, all right. So,
Have you tested it?
well, I'm just trying to summarize and get a
Right.
handle on it, all right.
So let's let
Yeah,
Dagmar
well,
speak, please.
yeah, because I'm kind of, like I said, I was here because the western bogs are inundating my neighborhood with sand, so it's a little different. But anyway, and I heard you guys responsible. So there's two issues going on, which you don't have anything to do with the capping part, right? You want to know, give the guy the go-ahead to move the dirt. Where do you put that dirt? I'm just curious. What are you going to do with dirt when you're done?
The dirt that's going off property?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's up to whoever wants to buy it, I mean.
Oh, okay. All right, and to your knowledge, based on what you have, it's not polluted, right? All right.
Yes,
All right,
it's not
so,
polluted.
my whole thing is when you're moving dirt, because what's happening in our neighborhood is we're being sandblasted because they're moving the sand around and it's crazy. We got piles of sand floating in the air. And the DEP said that you guys are the ones to come to talk to us. That's a little different. So I'm just curious, so do they cover the trucks up? I mean, I'd hate to see these people inundated with, like she was saying, with like sand. It's in the air, it was in our teeth, it was like everywhere.
And believe me, we are aware of it.
Oh, okay.
And we did talk about that, I think, before you came in.
All right, yeah, like I sound late to the party.
The owner of the property is here, his contractor is here.
All right,
They didn't speak at the time. If we need to revisit that, we can later on.
okay.
I want to continue this public hearing.
All right,
But
so-
what I will tell you, part of how we're looking at this site is asking them to phase it. So when we phase a site, it's substantially complete so that that doesn't happen.
All right, yeah, so like when they're talking about water, they were gonna spray with some kind of loam or something like that to mitigate it by us. I don't know what they're spraying with it, but anyway, so just don't let those poor people get inundated by all that sand.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
Yes, the woman in the middle row here. That's you.
Hi, my name is Amy McCain. I live at 14 Lincoln Circle in Cranberry Village. I was just wondering, this is just a quick question. Could they put a moratorium on the permit until it's all been mitigated and happy and everybody, EPA, DEP, has approved that everything has been cleaned up or capped or fixed, and then get the permit?
We're already at that point. DEP, we have our, Jim, why don't you address that?
Sure. Yes, we've gone through the process of the investigation, feasibility study, and what we can do about it.
And you're going to be capping it, right?
We've already capped it.
Oh.
It's been done. That cap was complete in August of '24.
No, I'm talking about those three sites there.
Those
That's
three
what he's
sites
talking about as well.
are all completely remediated to the extent that it's feasible. And the contaminated soil that remains is capped with an impermeable liner, and it's isolated from the environment and any kind of direct exposure.
Has that been inspected by the EPA and the DEP?
The DEP is quite happy with the situation as it is.
What about
Yes.
the EPA?
EPA doesn't get involved in this type of thing. They delegate this work to the state.
Right.
And so the,
recommends removal.
That's what I'm hearing, is that it was recommended that to be removed, but we're putting a Band-Aid on places like.
state DEP did not recommend it. The way this works is myself as a licensed site professional, I evaluate what can be done about it, what should be done about it. I discuss that
Hey,
with the DEP.
you guys could hold it down over here,
And
please.
they agreed with that solution. So that solution has now been implemented, and all the documentation associated with it has been forwarded to DEP for their files.
Okay. One more question. Would
Please.
you let your children drink from that brook?
No, I wouldn't, because it's not a source of drinking water. That brook,
Eventually it will.
there's a groundwater standard that is a concern. The level in the brook is far below levels of concern in the brook. That brook goes a long way and eventually combines with Taunton River and goes out to Mount Hope Bay. So we know exactly where the brook goes, and it is not a direct source of drinking water.
But any water that's in that whole entire area, bog ponds, tailwater ponds, the ponds that they're digging for reservoirs, all of that water is the aquifer.
Right, but the way the aquifer works is there are areas of the aquifer that get recharged, and there are areas of the aquifer that discharge. The area just down gradient of these sources is an area of discharge, and it gets into the surface water and stays in the surface water at that
It was
point.
my understanding that the last water or flow test was done in 1992 or something like that. Is that what I'm thinking of?
This study of the aquifer?
Yeah.
Was, what year, Quick. 2009.
2009.
Right. We did a very detailed study of the aquifer in the vicinity of this site.
Is those documents available to be seen?
Absolutely. All of the information is right on the DEP's website. I can provide you with a link to go right straight to it. All the testing is on there. Every report, every test that we did, it's right in there in the DEP's file.
Can I ask you why EP recommends removal and the DEP doesn't? Seems like a conflict of interest.
I don't know that the EPA recommends removal of PFAS contaminated soil at any location.
So
it's not something I'm aware
We
of.
have a question in the back. I'll take Ms. Sheehan first. You haven't spoken yet today.
Legally.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just to follow up on that point, we understand that you've studied the existing hydrology and put in all these monitoring wells, but have you done
a hydrology study to show the change before and after the earth removal? Because that is what's required by the bylaw. Do you have a study of that?
So the area that's being excavated in the cut and fill project is not near the part of the property where the PFAS contaminated soil is. My focus is strictly the PFAS contaminated soil, and that's what I've worked on.
Okay, so then I guess the question is for Mr. McLaughlin, as far as complying with the bylaw, do you have a study that shows the groundwater flow elevations before and after the earth removal as required by the bylaw?
Well, number one, I'm not sure. You say it's required by the bylaw. I don't think it is. I defer to the chairperson on that.
I can get the bylaw.
We'll look into it.
Yeah,
It does say that the permit application should have evidence showing the groundwater elevations on the site before and after the earth removal. And that's because, may I finish?
Does it say shall or may?
We have information on the groundwater flow system across this property.
But
As
not
it is now.
before and after the earth removal. And the reason why the bylaw says that is because by changing the elevation and removing the sand and gravel, you change the surface water and groundwater flows.
Okay.
That's a scientific fact.
Let me,
involving groundwater flow and
just-
geology, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I think Mr. Bagley can deal with that.
so.
So you'll
when I'm-
submit a study?
Yeah, he's studied the property.
So
Well,
let me,
if I may.
let me explain.
If I may,
Yeah.
Roger and John have got a copy of it. It does say exactly what Ms. Sheehan is talking about. If we get to that point, it'll probably be conditioned for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
No. The bylaw requires the information before you grant the permit. So they need to do the study before you grant the permit. The hydrology study to show the
Understood.
impact. Okay. So it's not, it's not a condition of the permit. It's a requirement of the permit application.
The reason I said that is because we're not sure we're giving them a permit.
Okay, well, I'll move on to my
Thank you.
points. And I hope you don't grant the permit. And it is our position from Community Land and Water Coalition. My name is Meg Sheehan. I'm an attorney. We have members who live, work, and reside in Carver, and I'm here on behalf of our group. We request that you deny the permit. This project does not qualify for a permit. It's a very preliminary project. There's no evidence whatsoever that in order to develop the site, the volume of earth of 480,000 cubic yards needs to be removed. This is very much like the SLT site where you allow...
Let's just keep it to this site specific. Please don't bring up any other permits.
Well, I'm just referencing
I know you are.
subdivision development, and this is a subdivision development, and the town's zoning and general bylaws require that there be a solid plan to use the land that shows that this is necessary to take out this volume of earth. And the volume of earth that's being removed, 480,000 cubic yards, according to our experts who study this and know the prices of what sand and gravel goes for in southeastern Mass right now.
Is irrelevant
which
to our
is-
conversation.
No, I just want to show.
It's
point
truly irrelevant. What
Okay,
they may
are
or
you
may not
allowing-
get for that
Are
is
you
irrelevant.
allowing public comment? Are you trying
I
to
am.
well, you're trying to censor my
I
comment?
am not. I'm just telling you it's irrelevant to this board.
May I please finish my public comment?
Have at it.
So the price of sand and gravel is $16.25 per cubic yard. So this volume of earth, if you do the math, is worth $7.8 million. And in addition, our testimony from actual sand and gravel mining operators such as E.J. Pontiff is that the boulders are worth more. So this is probably worth more than $7.8 million. So it appears to us that this is a sand and gravel mining operation with no actual plan for a subdivision development. If you have contracts and buildings that show that you can't build with that hill in the area, we would like to see them. The town, as far as the dust and the conditions in the permit, we would obviously request that the permit be denied, but it's no secret that the Earth Removal Committee over the last 15 years or so has allowed the existence of open pit mines. We have conditions right now at certain sites, and it includes SLT, where sand has been blowing on Ricketts Pond every winter since 2019, so that's for over 6 years. There's ice out there, and on the pond, you can see the ice today, just like the sand that was on the pond in 2019. So we would request that the sand be tested. I don't know if you know what type of aggregate material, sand and gravel, you will be removing, but sand is known to contain silica. This is respirable crystalline silica that is in the sand that is regulated by the U.S. Mine Safety and Health Administration, and there are standards to protect workers, and the EPA, the Department of Labor, just lowered the standards for sand mine workers in order to protect them from getting diseases such as silicosis and other lung-related diseases that is caused by the sand that's blowing, we believe, all over Carver, because the Earth Removal Committee has never required any sand mine operator, including any of the 12 existing operating sand mines, to test the sand. So in order to protect the public health, there should be a condition or a report that shows, before you permit this, what type of sand is going to be removed, and some kind of conditions to prevent another open pit mine in Carver. And we also urge that you require testing of the so-called clean fill that was brought into the site, 240,000 cubic yards of sand, or material, that's about worth $2 million approximately, that was brought into the site over the past couple of years, you state. So if that was brought in and you paid that much money to bring fill into the site, we really question why now you suddenly need to remove about 7.8 million cubic yards. So those are some of the questions.
480,000 cubic yards.
480,000 cubic yards, worth $7.8 million.
Thank you for your comments.
We request that you deny the permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we start doing repeats, do we have any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Hello again. Michelle Rothfuss, Montello Street, Plimpton. Question for you, please. We had our well tested last year. Mev Preet came and tested our well for us once we started this whole thing back here. Sorry. My question would be, what would it take to have the houses on Heather's Path and the rest of the houses on Montello, their wells be tested like ours was for the PFAS? We didn't pay for ours. She offered to do it for us because we were concerned once we heard about the PFAS stuff going on back there. And this is actually our third house with a well, so we're very good at knowing what to do with a well. Is it possible for that whole section to be tested? Are you able to test those wells for those people to kind of help them, you know?
So that's a George.
What was the
be at
result of the
ease.
test on your well?
Ours was actually good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there was any PFAS in our well, as far as I remember. I have to ask my husband again because he read the report. Because we have 2 babies in the house, and, it's a big concern for us. But I think, I know there's new children coming into the neighborhood. Lady is having twins in a few weeks, and I know putting people's minds at ease on their wells before you start this would be a good thing. And then as things move along, test again. Like, help
I hear what
us.
you're saying, and I think it's a good suggestion on one hand, but let me say this.
Mm.
I'm a career trial lawyer.
Right.
If I were representing you,
Mhm.
I would say, don't have the guy who has the PFAS
Right.
problem
Exactly. Right.
test your well.
Well, it was, no. It was Mev came to our house.
No, but you're asking him to have it
Right.
tested,
But
right?
you're
Right.
asking-
To
you're
his
asking-
point.
You're asking me
So,
to test Heather's Pat's wells,
Right.
and that's just a horrible conflict of interest.
right,
And in addition to that, as Mr. Bagley has testified, and I'm familiar with this, I've tried cases involving hazardous waste, hydrogeology, et cetera. It's a physical and scientific impossibility for our PFAS problem to contaminate those wells because of the downgradient status and because of the flow of the groundwater.
But once you-
Well, if I could finish, which we have studied extensively.
right.
As Mr. Bagley
But you haven't done
said,
hydrology.
Hold on, just let him finish, please.
as Mr. Bagley said, there are other sources of PFAS.
Oh, yes.
One of the sources are people's septic systems.
Right.
So what I see throughout Massachusetts is, ironically, a person's, because of the things they put in to their toilets and what have you, that have
Right.
PFAS in them, and their washing machines, et cetera,
Right.
ends up in their septic system and in their leaching field.
Right.
And then when the rainwater comes down and percolates, they, ironically, their septic system contaminates their own well. So I would suggest that everyone have their wells tested.
Right.
I've had my expert who has, you see all of the testing we've done on this site, and we've tested every square inch. We all know all about the hydrology, and, to Ms. Sheehan's point, we know about the hydrology, we know about the water table, Mr. Bagley can talk to this. We know about the hydrology before the sand is removed, and we know about the hydrology after the sand is removed, and it's not gonna have any effect on this site, so I guess that's my.
Thank you.
I just want one thing.
Yep.
EPA's levels have just come down to 0 on PFAS. So now we're supposed to be at 0 now, okay? That's the EPA's decision.
Thank you.
Massachusetts is at 20. It needs to come to, Massachusetts is a very polluted state. And it's because of situations like this. Best thing to do is get rid of that sand. Get rid of that polluted PFAS.
So,
Get it, dig it up. Alan Jermaine said it on Concom. He was, first thing I ever agreed with him on, and.
How many
Yeah.
So-
Chuckle. But I did agree with him on that, and I gave him a high five for it. So, that needs to go. I don't understand. You got all this money that you're gonna make off this project.
Thank you for your comments.
so,
Do we have anybody else for the group that's here?
thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you, Michelle.
My name's Linda Jacobs, and I live in Cranberry Village, and I just have a quick comment. I think it's been mentioned before, and I just want to reiterate that it would be very helpful to have this earth removal committee meeting at a time in the evening so that working people can show up. I know several people that would like to come
Sure.
participate, but they're working. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I see anybody else? Yep.
My name is Dennis Lonigan. I live on 28 Evans Path. I just want to go back to what my wife Jean was saying about the time of operation. I'm more concerned about noise, the noise in this pit. We're going to live in a bowl there, and we're going to hear all these trucks backing up with the beep, beep, beep. So that's a real concern of mine.
Okay.
Is the noise.
So let me ask you a question.
And-
Did you see the phasing?
I didn't.
Okay. Can you put
And
that back
I
up, the
like.
phasing?
I like the
Put that
idea,
up on the site.
No, if you put it up on the,
but I do like the idea of the phasing. That's a good check, balance and checkpoint at that point.
We've also, in the past, tried to use white noise for backup and things like that. That might be helpful in this case as well.
And I think what Michelle, I think what Michelle was asking you to do with the testing of the wells is to pay for this. Not that you test it. We'll get our own independent tests, but you flip the bill for this. That's what she was asking.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
So back to my point for you, you see the phasing 1A, 1B?
Yes.
Is
In the
that,
lower left-hand corner.
yes, sir. Is that phasing the bowl you're talking about? Would it be
Well,
better
where
if
is-
we were to go forward with this? Would you like to see the phasing in a different fashion?
I want to first see where Heather's path is on that.
Heather's path is like here.
Right.
Okay, so that's the bowl.
Right.
We're right in that bowl.
So
And
is there
when
any-
we've had Charter in there, was it Charter? All we heard during the day, I'm gone during the day. I work outside of the house, but my wife is there all day, and she hears this beep, beep, beeping all day long. And if you're taking out 480,000 cubic yards, that's a lot of beeping.
It is. That's right. So white noise has just been brought up.
What does that mean?
It's more of a buzz than
The
a beep.
quack.
Yeah, none of them are good, but they are all required by law.
Okay, no
Okay.
rainfalls or waterfalls or anything.
There's only a couple types of the noises, and it's to alert anybody that's trespassing on the site, or even somebody that's working there on the site, that the machine is backing up, and to be aware of this around.
I understand what
Yeah,
that
I
is.
know you
That's
do,
my
but-
whole background is construction.
One of them is supposedly less offensive than the other.
Okay, and I understand that's a Massachusetts law, the trucks have to have that for
Yeah, it's a-
safety issues.
It's a
I
federal law,
understand that.
actually.
So that is really only going to be determined by your work time.
Correct.
On that.
Yep.
So I think what would be fair is just an 8-hour day, 7:30, 4 o'clock, done, everything shut down. Weekends, no.
Okay.
Figure out how to get that stuff out faster, whatever you have to do.
So I'll ask you the question. You're in construction, and it's an arithmetic problem. There is so many yards, if we were to go forward with this, there's so many yards, so many truck trips, so many hours. The length of time increases, the less truck trips you have, the less hours.
Okay, can I interrupt you
Of
for
course.
just for a second
Yeah.
on that? 480,000 cubic yards exported.
Yep.
How much are you importing? You're not importing clean fill
No.
to cap anything?
No.
You're
So what-
you're gonna be processing this for your clean fill.
So it's a industrial site, so there will be concrete trucks, there will be asphalt trucks, there will be building materials. But as far as soils coming in, the applicant is telling us no.
That stuff happens after they're clean, yeah.
Correct.
That's not during this phase.
I think it's probably all occurring at the same time if the
What do you need
applicant,
concrete trucks in there for?
foundations.
Oh, that's the building phase of it, yeah. I'm just talking about the cleaning up phase.
roads, too.
Earth removal.
So what I'm getting at is when he says there's nothing coming in, there is no soil coming in, but there will be other materials coming in is what I'm getting at.
Okay, what is that other material?
Building materials,
Oh, the
concrete,
building,
asphalt,
okay, yeah.
that type of stuff.
Yep.
Road materials.
I'm sorry?
You're saying this occurs after this, all these phases have occurred?
What's-
Or during the same time frame? Parallel? Is it-
Are you running concurrently here?
No, and again, I know enough about building roads to be dangerous. I'm not a road contractor. What we're gonna do is, pending the permits, obviously, we're gonna phase the project, we're gonna, put whatever we need to put down to control the dust and what have you. As you can see in phase 2, what we're doing is we're gonna rough in the whole road. And the reason why we want to do that in phase 2 is because in this location, which we went down to on our site visit, as you'll recall, it's a perfect sightline distance
Yep.
for trucks. So we'll start off coming in here, but as quickly as we can, we're gonna get this road roughed in so we can move even further away and have a better sight line. We will not be, in a perfect world, if I could wave a magic wand, I would have the site leveled and roughed, I'll call it, this road roughed in from April to December 30th of next year. And then weather pending from, so that'd be April 2025 of this year to December 30th of this year, site leveled and roughed in. And then from March, April of 2026 to December of 26, have the utilities installed, have the sidewalks installed, the road installed, et cetera. That would be my,
So that 8-month period, are you talking about just phase 1 or the whole project?
no, what I'm talking about is if you picture in your mind's eye, there's, and you're in construction, so you know, the first thing you have to do is site preparation, okay? So the first 8-month period of this year, 2025, would be site preparation. The second 8-month period, 2026, would be site finish work. So in December 30th of next year, if you and I were in the site, we'd be walking around and we'd have sidewalks in, paving in, done, and as the chairperson said to you, I understand what you're saying about the beep beep, but if you want the beep beep less, then you have to have more trucks going on.
Well, I understand that, and we gotta find a happy medium. We,
Slice it.
No, look at, I mean, I.
Well, it's not the same. So there is the equation that says, listen, you can do it 8 hours a day, and we can condition it for 8 hours a day. Not saying we will, not saying we won't.
do you
But
have a cap on
bear
how
with
many
me.
trucks per day?
So that's where I was going with that. Right now, we have been capping everything at 50. He asked earlier today about 70.
What did you see on that 20 truck difference as far as time?
Look, what I've asked for is, I've asked for 7 to 5, Monday to Friday, and I've asked 8 to 1 or 7 to 1, I forget, on Saturdays. So,
Yeah,
but
that's gonna,
it's up to the board, it's up to you folks. I mean,
yeah,
I want-
that weekend stuff is just, it's not gonna cut with me or my wife, and I'm sure everybody here.
All right, so.
And
let's-
I understand, you're
So you're
busy.
getting into the stuff that I want to hear from you guys, the residents,
Yeah,
not so much from the applicant, right?
right. So I guess, we're gonna have to really narrow that down. I love what I didn't catch her name. I love what she read and what she said. I think it sounds like you should be adhering to what she said as far as rules and regulations and Massachusetts codes and regulations.
Thank you very much.
So please do not discount this woman's expertise, okay? And I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much. There was a hand up in the back, other than you, I'm sorry, and bear with me, Ms. Sheehan. There was one other person. Rebecca, did you have your hand up earlier, or was it Michelle?
I just want to say, who's monitoring the silica dust when her grandkids are out playing? That's what I want to know.
Okay,
I mean, this is a major issue.
okay. Yes,
This is about silica dust, not the, EPA. I've made some packages for all of you to see, but I just want to read the first couple. From my studying, internet studying,
there you go.
silica sand is 95% and above silica. Anything below 95% is sand, but it can have 94% silica in it. All sand has silica in it.
Okay.
And I'd like to read you just the first paragraph of here. What is crystalline silica? Crystalline silica, also referred to as quartz, is a common mineral. It's found in soil, sand, granite, concrete, rock, and many other materials. Cutting, chipping, grinding, drilling these materials creates a lot of dust, which contains tiny crystalline silica particles. This airborne silica dust can easily be breathed in, cause a major health hazard for exposed workers. That's not talking about the neighbors who may have some health problems, babies, elderly.
Thank you.
Can I pass this out to you guys?
You may.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sheehan, you had your hand up earlier? Thank you. We'll give one to Jen as well. For the record.
Thank you.
I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Two questions. First is, I still, with all the phasing, we still have not heard any explanation of why it's necessary to level the site, why this project cannot be done within the existing topography or taking out half or a quarter. It's not just a question of how many trucks a day. There's no explanation of why there can't be a project here with just 4,800 cubic yards.
Okay,
instead
so
of-
can we let him answer that?
Well, I'm just trying to explain my question.
Yep, okay.
Can you do it with taking out 4,800 cubic yards?
No, because the problem we have here is, as you can see, in phase two, the bulk of the removal, 158,000 cubic yards in phase two and 22,000 cubic yards in phase 3A is right here. And that's the hill on the front of the property. We have old growth pines there. That property's, it's a rising hill. And so what you want, this is an industrial zoned area. This has been a part of Carver that's been slated for development for Carver for probably coming up on 35 years now. And so it's zoned industrial, it's an industrial site. And when you're developing an industrial site, you don't want to have, basically you couldn't use this lot if you ran the road through there. And so in order to use this lot, we have to level the lot. Also, for truck traffic, your family is L. Knife and Sons. So
No,
you're familiar
no,
with trucking and what have you. What all the folks who are interested in buying and locating their businesses here have told us, and the brokers have told us is, you have big trucks coming in to go to a facility. They want to be able to see other trucks. They don't want to be blocked by topography coming around blind corners and what have you. So we want to develop the whole property at one level from front to back.
So you said it's industrial zoned. Are you planning industrial activities here or commercial warehouses? What are you planning?
Well, the folks that and I asked them if I could use their name, and they said I couldn't at this point, so I can't. I wanted to be able to tell who we're negotiating with. They just told me I couldn't, but they're industrial users that I think the town of Carver will welcome, because this is an area that Carver has designated for industrial use.
So are they manufacturing something? I mean, industrial uses is manufacturing.
No, that's not true.
An industrial use under the bylaw is making something. A commercial use is something else.
No, that's not true.
Well, what are you planning to build here? Who are these people? You can tell us what they're, are they Amazon warehouses with 7,000 trucks?
Is a service company that has a fair amount of equipment that goes on and off the site. And the other company is more of a warehouse type use.
So you don't have any agreements, any plans? This is all speculative, in other words?
No, it's not speculative. We've gone back and forth with letters of intent, which I anticipate signing in the near future. What I wanted to do is I just wanted to get through this permitting process so I could tell them, yes, I have my permits. We're not wasting our time. We've already laying out potential building locations, parking locations, et cetera, on both of those sites.
Did
Well,
you
you have-
have a second question
Yes.
for him?
Yes, I do. The planning board, when they first approved this, conditioned it upon no earth removal from this site. Now you have to go back to the planning board and get an amended subdivision. And is this going to be the same situation where it's a speculative project and you're getting some kind of subdivision approval, amended subdivision plan, and who's going first here? Are you getting the earth removal permit to take out $7 million worth of sand and gravel, and then you're going to go tell the planning board, oh, we're going to level the hill, this is what it's going to look like? Shouldn't you have your subdivision plan first approved by the planning board?
Two things. Number one, it's not $7 million worth of sand and gravel. Number two.
How much is it worth?
Number two, the planning board, I know they put that condition in, in my opinion, that's they can't, they've kind of gone beyond their jurisdiction there. They can't.
That planning board site, that's approved already. If you wanted to appeal that, you should have appealed it last year.
Well,
when it was-
let's, I know your question is specifically to earth removal, and I'd like to keep it there.
All right, well, can you do this project with half the earth removal?
No.
Do you have plans that show why?
Well, I just explained to you why.
Well, that's
I need to
just
make
your
this-
explanation,
So-
and you don't have any customers, so.
Thank you for the question. Do we? Yep, can you come right up to the front, please?
It's,
Well, it's just like-
they need their stuff signed.
Yeah, could you sign our civic hours?
They only have
Yeah, yes, please. If you put up with it for this long, absolutely.
they have to get 2 hours in, and we capped at 2 hours.
Where would you like me to sign this?
Right here, you have to print and then sign, and then you.
Right here?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just like an email, and then how many hours?
I'm gonna print and sign, and then I'm gonna pass them along. Does everybody sign it, or just the chair?
Just you.
Oh, lucky me.
You got the big guy.
Could you just write like the amount of hours we completed, which should be like.
10 hours?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like around 2.
Yeah,
And then, just an email that they could watch it.
Oh, I don't know about the.
2.5.
This is a perfect break, everybody, and I tell you what, I thank you all very much for coming here and sitting through and listening to how it works.
Yeah, the
have one
email
more?
is earthremoval@carver.gov or something like that. Sure thing. One more comment.
This is an absolute welcome reprieve for a
All I
moment.
do is put a 2 in.
So, and it's for the best reason going. I apologize for the interruption, everybody. We've got some young folks here from, that were getting their civic hours today, so they've got a little bit of a lesson today. So while we're, that's the right answer. In the essence of time, do we have, yep, come on up. Sure.
So,
And what's your name?
I'm Abby. I live on Lillian Way, not too far from Dagmar.
Yeah.
I don't know who's responsible for the dust and the silt that has landed in our neighborhood, coated our driveway.
So are you talking about his impending application?
I don't know, I don't know. I don't know who's doing it.
So right now.
Okay, so I'm saying whoever is doing it is making us sick.
That's right.
They're coating our neighborhood with silt and sand, and we're breathing it in.
So I'd like
And
to.
it's strangling my vacuum cleaner. It's killing my hot tub.
Can we get to that after? And I apologize.
It's clogged up my air filter in my furnace. And I know it's doing that to my neighbors. And whoever is responsible for that has to not do that to us, because no matter what the benefits of some industrial complex in the future, our neighborhood is going to die from breathing this crap.
I'm going to revisit the dust issue when we get done with Mr. McLaughlin. So, well, right now, the immediate one is Lillian Way, as I'm hearing. So,
And I'm fully aware of the ramifications of what it does to the human body to breathe this crap.
so do we have any other questions from Mr. McLaughlin under this public hearing right now? Okay. So what I'd like to do is continue this to the next meeting.
Joanna Layton is here, she's been sitting here. Could we
Yeah.
just be 5 minutes, or 3 minutes?
Absolutely, I wasn't aware, I didn't see your hand up.
Johanna, if you could just quickly, thank you for coming.
I appreciate all the comments that they've made.
And what's your name, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, Joanna Layton,
Thank you.
4 Wenham Shores, but I'm also the chair. And I want to make sure that the lady that, I think her name is Heather, that's not a conflict of interest. We have, excuse me?
It was Jean.
I'm sorry, Jean. The urban renewal plan, we have charge of this, according to DHCD. We're supposed to be looking at every time anything happens on that site, we have to make sure that things are going the way they should. If not, they have to get reported, or we actually have an interaction with Route 44. It's important that they get the land, because Marketplace today is asking for a level site. They are looking for people to see who they are. They don't want to climb a hill. And so it's really important.
People are looking for clean air and
So,
clean water.
just
Hold on.
please let her, just give her the consideration that everybody gave you.
You're right, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Money, money, money.
Well,
Marketplace.
Thank you.
this is a site that that's been looked at by the town since 1994, when the Industrial Commission group of people, I've been in the town for 52 years, so, and if you've been here that long, you can see and hear and say everything that is.
I've lived on Heather's Path since 1994,
Can-
and I know everything that's gone on back there.
Can we give her the decency, please? Thank you.
So the preparation and the growth of that area was wanted for a long time. In addition to that, the town spent more money when they put in the water, the North Carver Water District. That's not an issue, but it probably could be, but it's not at this point. We have 20 years on this plan. The plan was signed off by the planning board, as well as the RDA and the select board. And that was 2017. We have 20 years on this plan. It's been a struggle. It hasn't been gone. It's not easy. And there's risk, as we can see right now, the risk. And unfortunately, these people are very true. And Dagmar, I know her well. Carver did always look the other way. Unfortunately, they're absolutely correct. That whole area was seepage. Willard Rhodes had the biggest part of that. He put macadam on it from the Air Force and got a lot of money. In addition to that was tires. In addition to that was landscaping and the Whitworth property as well. Yes, you're right. That was a mess. And it was a disaster, and they had ideas. The Industrial Commission said, oh yes, if we can get this site, they couldn't even permit it because there was no frontage when the building was supposed to take place, and so forth and so on. When Mr. Malinsky, if you remember the town administrator, they got together and he went and found somebody that was interested in it. And we had that very large Mass Works come in, $3.2 million to put all that new roadway and lights and everything. And the water is piped from the road coming in, all ready to go. Now, the next phase is for him to come in and get the people. Yes, we know, we had Hillwood come in, and he had deep pockets, but the economy changed. And they wanted an extension, I'm going to be honest with you, they wanted an extension. And Route 44 said, no, I think we can do it on our own. And they are. And I'm hoping that you people realize that the site has to be, fill and maneuvering the dirt around. And he has to get rid of that. Now, personally, can he test it? That's my question. If you're going to take some material and get it out of here, we don't want to do to some other place what Marlboro did to us. So can that happen when they have these trucks, this material? When they brought the material in initially to fill some area, right? That was massive. Off of Park Ave, they measured it, right? They tested it. There's all kinds of reports that the Board of Health did to make sure, right? So conversely, can't you do the other way? Can't you do it the other way?
Well, it's happening in Carver right now, down at the fog on Plymouth Street.
Okay.
That's right next to that dump that Whitworth had that got shut down. And they're doing earth removal at Mr. Weston's bog. That is all contaminated over there. There's one little skinny road that goes between that dump and that cranberry bog. Okay?
So-
They're doing earth removal.
Okay, so.
And bringing it to Duxbury.
So based on the first phase, when they brought the material in, and the tightness that the Board of Health, our Board of Health had with testing and making sure, why can't you, or I'm sure he's willing and able to do this, do the reverse? It's going to cost money, but hey, we have to,
That's done all the time with people. Yes, he's correct. That is up to the contractor, but you're overseeing the contractor. So it all falls back to you, is what that does.
So my
They can track this.
Okay.
And they can have that on a report. It went to Mrs. Jones' backyard.
Very good.
This went to Peter Doyle's front yard. They
So let her finish. Thank you for the comments.
So doing that, in other words, reverse the process. Because Carver wants to make sure, and these people, and I agree, and I'm sure the rest of the taxpayers would agree, we want this to be a solid project, a good project. And we don't want to have anybody come back to us and say, you know what, you didn't test that soil. And the planning board, I think they've overstepped their boundaries. I really do. They should be only caring about the roads and not anything else. This is your place. You are the guys that really need to put the pressure and say, okay, you want to bring some soil out? You want to sell that soil regardless of how much money they're going to make or don't make? You have to test that. And you have to tell us where you're going to put it. Because you don't want, I'm sure Mr. McLaughlin doesn't want to put it in somebody's area that's not going to be justification for
And
it.
that's why we've given the public the time, and we've sat here very quietly and patiently and listened. So we can hear exactly what you guys are saying and what your concerns are.
Chuck,
So-
hi, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just briefly, if I could ask Ms. Lane. I think, because this board knows me a little bit, but I've worked with your board for 13 years, 14 years. Maybe if you could just spend 2 minutes. Have you ever had any problems with the work I've done with you? Talk about eminent domain, whatever, just briefly if you could.
That's irrelevant.
It is in fact irrelevant. I think what's happening here.
Responsible with everything is a given.
Thank you. I'm right there with you. And it is a given. And to be quite frank, this is in fact a bigger process than earth removal, obviously, as we've heard about today. But I've heard you, I've seen Roger, John, and Mike taking notes as well as I have. And I'm thinking that we're going to continue this to February the 4th at 3 o'clock. Ms. Layton, thank you very much for your comments.
Can they get later so more people can come? Like my husband, he can't come, he works.
So we're going to meet February 4th at 3 o'clock in this room. We will continue this meeting until then, this hearing until then. We have, Eric, did you want to get up and talk about the dust? You weren't here when we were talking about it previously. Did you want to say anything to the audience while they're here?
If the abutters have questions, I'm more than willing to answer. I've talked to most of them personally.
Okay, so
Communicate with them or anybody else.
because each individual situation is slightly different.
Yep.
And so we like to deal with the abutters directly and mitigate whatever problems they have. And I would answer any of their questions in front of the board if necessary.
So you don't have to answer them in front of us. We've taken our actions. You were here, you weren't when I went through it in the beginning. You do have some concerned neighbors. If you guys want to take that out in the hall and talk,
It's up to my neighbor.
that's great.
I got here at 4 o'clock. When did you guys talk about it?
We started at 3.
Oh, Dan, my husband's selectman said it's 4 o'clock.
Oh, so, with that, we have, that's the last thing on our agenda, other than to adjourn. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So John, Roger, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on February 4th.
So what did you decide?